mysteries abound around the world, from strange lights in the night sky to ghostly apparitions passing from one realm to the next. From the great pyramids of Egypt to what lies beneath the depths of Loch Ness. From Bigfoot to Atlantis, they are all mysteries waiting to be solved. Join Laurie Phillips, Lauren Smith, Graz, and Billy Simmons as they search for the truth on Nite Callers Radio.
Good evening and welcome to Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio. It is June 25th, 2015. You're here with the whole crew tonight. You got Lori, Lauren, Graz, David, and Billy Simmons. Are you guys ready to start this off tonight?
Let's do it. I dare you. Go ahead, I dare you.
All right.
For those of you that don't know what we're doing tonight, we're doing the Nite Callers Rewind. We are going back to the very beginning and covering the history of this show, all the hosts, and all the different intro segments from our favorite, well, not our favorite, but the most popular shows. Actually, some of our favorites too, but we had a lot of favorites. So there was no way we could put all of these people on there or listen to all that audio. It's a lot of audio.
Nite Callers has done around 168 shows since its inception, and so obviously we couldn't do all of them. We did pick, like she said, the most popular and the most meaningful, some of the most meaningful. So we are going to go back in time tonight and listen to the different hosts and some of the good memories that we've had on the show.
And because we have so many segments, we want to go ahead and get started. So hang on. It's Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio Rewind.
Hello, I am Laurie Phillips, and welcome to Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio Rewind. For some of our newer listeners, you may not know that Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio has been around for almost 7 years. In 7 years, we have never done a show reflecting the colorful and interesting history of Nite Callers Radio. This show has had different hosts and different introduction songs and varied formats and design. The name Nite Callers was created by Rhonda Rita, as it was a common practice to do Bigfoot calls at night, thus Nite Callers with a slightly different spelling. So we felt good about the name and considered it appropriate for a Bigfoot show. So Nite Callers Radio was born, and an account was set up on Blog Talk Radio. The show was created to talk with witnesses, other researchers, authors, and celebrities about the subject of Bigfoot. Also, our ultimate goal was to educate the public about Bigfoot and share ideas and experiences. We didn't just cover Bigfoot either. Nite Callers has interviewed UFO witnesses, ghost experts, werewolf and dogman, the chupacabra, and Mothman. Nite Callers Radio continued to be professional even during controversial times. Also, the name of the show was revised in later years from Nite Callers Radio to Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio. Nite Callers Radio has aired 168 episodes, any of which you can listen to in our archive. We at Nite Callers would like to thank all the wonderful guests that we've had throughout the years, but we'll only be able to share but a few tonight. And of course, I want to take this final moment before we begin to thank all of our listeners. How precious you are to all of us and our supporters through these years. Thank you for listening. The first episode of Nite Callers Radio aired on December 31st, 2008. The hosts were Jim Bear Grant, Laurie Phillips, and Shasta. The intro was created, I believe, by Matt Knapp, And following the intro is a clip from Nite Callers' interview of Tim Coonbo Baker. Nite Callers Radio rewinds to January 25th, 2009.
Blog Talk Radio.
Hey, you know what time it is? No, I don't. It's time for Nite Callers. Oh, yeah, I've heard about that show. You know, Jim Grant. Uh-huh. The feller known as Bear. Yeah. And Lori Phillips. Seven Fireflies? Yeah, that's right. And guess who else? Who? Oklahoma's own Shasta. Nah, get out of here. That's a right smart bunch. Let's join them as they talk about the latest in research. Uh-huh. About the big fella. The Bigfoot guy. Everybody's welcome. Y'all join in. Heard that. So let's get her done. Let's get her done. Come on.
I know what he's talking about. Down at Armstrong Corner, Bear.
Yep, well, the one that coming up that fence line. That's what he's talking about.
Let's hear about it.
Yeah, that was
that night.
That was me, you, Faye, and James.
Yes, sir, it was.
And
the fog was real bad that night. There's an old folks saying, when the fog is low to the ground, the Bigfoot will come in. But tell what happened tonight.
We pulled up and we just stopped, and we sat there listening for 2 or 3 minutes just to see, or heck, maybe 5-10 minutes more like it, just to see what we could hear. And I think all we had heard was one knock way off in the distance, to the south of us. And I don't know, we'd been there at least 10 minutes or so, and we'd heard one knock. And finally, Bear, I don't remember if it was you or me, one of us let out a call, and it didn't even get out of our mouths, and this son of a gun let loose screaming down at the bottom, probably 300-400 yards south of us. Right. And here it came, charging up through the weeds and the brush and the briars, coming towards us.
It was running parallel with that fence row, remember?
Right. Yeah, it was running parallel to the fence row, but it was on the side of the fence away from the field. It was back in the brush and stuff, on the west side of the fence. And it came charging up, and I mean, it sounded like a freight train coming through the brush. And that's when we looked around, and all of a sudden, James was gone.
Yep.
He was totally gone. And he had jumped in the truck, and then about that time, Faye decided it was time for her to open up a can of gone, and she couldn't get in because James had the door locked.
Faye's been there before.
and Faye started squalling. Well, this thing, by that time, it didn't take but just a few seconds, it seemed like, or it might have taken, I don't know, maybe 10 or so. I don't know. It didn't take very long for it to, it took longer than that, but it didn't take very long for it to make it up there where we were. And and it was crashing through that brush, and I realized it was getting right to the edge of it, and there was a little neck of that field that separated us. There was about maybe 20 yards of open space between the edge of the weeds and where we were sitting.
Right.
And right as it got to that, I clicked on a 3 million candle power spotlight and put right in his face. And it slammed on the brakes and commenced to screaming and hollering and thrashing stuff. And I think Bear and I would have run if we hadn't been scared to death. And by the way, Bo had already... Where did Bo go, Bear? Did he jump through the window of the truck?
He sure did. He food box and dove in that back window.
Yeah. Bo had decided it was time to go too, and
yes, he did.
and he it slammed on the brakes and stood there and screamed at us for a time or two, and we stood there looking at it, and it paced around and ripped up handsful of the weeds and flung them, and then it just got quiet, real quiet, real quiet, and that's when we really started getting the creeps, and we decided that we might ought to leave, so we got in the truck and left then, and I don't know how. Say what?
Foggy. I remember it was foggy that night.
It was foggy.
It warmed up.
Stopped, but he didn't take that thing. Probably didn't. He didn't take. He was 400 yards from us at least. When that was a 40-acre field, and he was all the way to the far end of it, and he didn't take. It was significantly less than a minute for him to get up there to us, and I mean you could, and he would sounded like he was letting out a scream about every 50 to 75 yards. He'd let out a big bellowing scream, and there wasn't any doubt that he was coming at us, and he was coming fast. And I think about a man in the wide open can run 400 yards in a little less than a minute, and this dude was doing that, or even a hair better, plowing through the brush and stuff.
That's it. There ain't no way in hell this old fat boy can run 400 yards in a minute.
Well, I was just thinking back.
If one was on you.
Well, I was just thinking back when I was in high school running track, I could do the 440. You could do it. Folks that were pretty swift could do it do 440 yards in a minute, and that was pretty much the standard that we'd try to hit.
Well, that's why I did track.
But that dude covered that ground in less than that. I mean, he was hauling.
All right.
And when he hit the edge of the field and he was bursting out of that brush out into the edge of that field, he was still on all fours.
Yep. And, where they was on all fours. I mean.
And he didn't stand up until I put the light on him.
Tim Coonbo Baker continues to appear on radio shows today, enthralling new listeners and recapturing the old and faithful. To hear this episode in full, check Nite Callers archives for the episode January 25th, 2009. Tim Coonbo Baker. Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio Rewind will continue in a moment, but first, back to our host.
Hey, what'd you think of that? Don't I sound like NPR radio?
Ding, 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 ding. Ding, 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 ding.
It definitely has a more southern spin on it than now.
Yeah. Well, you got to think it was all southern people that were on first hosting the first Nite Caller show. It was all people from the South, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Texas. Yeah. So.
Well, so without those fine people, Nite Callers would have never been. So, a big round of applause for the first co-host, or the first host of Nite Callers Radio. And on to the next.
Okay, let's go. Okay, now for Nite Callers History, Part 2.
Hello, and welcome back to Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio Rewind. Nite Callers Radio aired 9 episodes in 2009 when the show changed format and hosts. Bear and Shasta left the show and joined Matt Knapp to create a Southern Rebel Bigfoot show called the Bigfoot Outlaws. You can find their archive shows on Blog Talk Radio. 2 weeks later, Laurie Phillips joined with new host Brian Wallen, a.k.a. Tennessee Cherokee, and continued Nite Callers Radio. The intro was redone to follow the more New Age format, and Andrew Stickney did the introduction. The first show under the new format was on March 8, 2009, where Nite Callers interviewed Chris Noel. Tonight, however, we are going to share a clip of the interview with the father of Bigfoot research, Mr. Robert W. Morgan, which aired on March 15, 2009, under the new show format. The Soul Snatchers, written by Morgan, deals with his personal work mainly among the Native Americans regarding the forest giants. But it also reports an encounter in Moscow, Russia, with a refugee Tibetan Lama that brought all the mysteries into sharp focus. It is a must-read for anyone seriously interested in understanding why this field research is often stymied by governments. Robert has also written an informative field manual revealing how you can learn to have positive results with this mysterious species. Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio rewinds to March 15th, 2009.
Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome. You are now listening to Nite Callers with your hosts, Tennessee Cherokee and Laurie Phillips.
People say, oh, I don't know what I'm going. Get out of my face. There's so much in this world to do. And this is one of the things that brought me into the forest giant research. Because I don't know, do you know how I got involved in it at all?
We know about you.
Yeah, a little.
Go ahead.
I know that you were in the military and your first sighting was in Mason County, Washington, right?
Right. And I was in the Navy. Our ship, we'd just come back from a Far East cruise, and we put in the dry dock in Bremerton, Washington. And I'm a very healthy guy, but spending 9 months in a ship with 2,000 sailors, all males, gets a little boring. You know what I mean?
Oh, wow, yeah.
Yeah. So when we put in the dock, this kid beat feet. Man, I wanted to get off alone, and I really did, And so I book off, and I love the mountains. I love nature and all that sort of thing. So I got up there, and I took a rifle with me, and I pretended I was bear hunting. I wouldn't hurt a bear on a bet, but I took it along. No, I like bears. They're nice people. Anyway.
Bears are people too.
And like Smokey and Yogi and all of them. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. You know him too? Yeah.
Yes, I do.
See, I live up here in Montana, and people don't believe me, but it's true. I have about 22 deer around my house, which I've become friends with. And from time to time, bears come down. I'm in Whitefish, Montana, right outside of Glacier Park. And one morning I woke up, and there was a bear taking a nap on my deck, And, yeah, I love it. I love it when nature, when animals, wild animals, trust you. It's the biggest compliment in the world. It really is. Well, anyway, here I go. I'm an Ohio kid from a steel town. I didn't know what a cow looked like until I was 12 or 13, something like that. Somebody showed me a cow, and I said, I'm drinking milk out of that thing? What the hell did I know? You got to be kidding me, man. I ain't drinking no more milk out of that, man. That thing's ugly. Anyway, it's hairy, too.
And it's warm.
Yeah, well, I don't know that. I don't get anywhere near it, What do you mean, moo? I don't understand that language. So anyway, when I get up into this mountain, all I wanted to do was be left alone. I had a buddy of mine. He went on one side of the mountain. I went on the other. And that's when I heard something coming down the slope behind me and went into a group of bushes and things. And I thought, what in the heck? It's making not a lot of noise, but moving around. And then I started seeing flashes of black hair. I thought, Lord love a duck, that's a bear. He's between me and the car. So I did. So I back up, and I'm looking and I'm watching and watching. Finally, after about, I don't even know how long, it seemed like an eternity, I figured, I got to get this show on the road, man. I got to know what this thing is. So I stepped out and I yelled. And
what did you yell? Just like, hey! Or what did you say?
I don't know. I think it was past the toilet paper. I'm not sure. Anyway. Anybody got a diaper?
Did you check your britches?
Oh, man. So anyway, but I levered a shell into the weapon. It was a 30-30 carbine. And I stepped out in dead silence. And when I've heard this thing that you could cut silence with a knife, that's no kidding. And all of a sudden, it started to move. And I automatically started tracking it with the weapon. But I don't shoot something unless I know exactly what it is or if there's a problem. So I'm tracking it, and it got about 30 yards away, something like that. And it turned around, and I saw it from the waist up. And it was... Now, remember, I'm a kid from Steel Town. I don't know what animals look like. I don't know I hadn't been to a zoo, but I'd seen pictures. And to me, I was looking at a gorilla. I mean, this sucker was big. He was hairy. He was black skin, black hair. And he turned around, and we stared at each other. And I must say that first it was consternation on his face. And it was, I think it was surprise, like, where in the world did this little white monkey come from? And I'm looking at him, and I'm saying, my God, is gargantua, So we stared at each other for a while, and then this dude, and I can't tell you, honestly, to this day, I can't tell you. Take a hypnotherapist, I think. I don't know who left first, but I think it was me. And, And I disappeared. I circled around. I got back to the car, and I booked out of there in no time flat. And I found a gas station and a roadside little cafe, and it had an outside telephone. And I called. First, I called the State Highway Patrol. They passed me off to the Sheriff's Department. And I got the impression that they were going to send somebody out with little white coats for this. Yeah, because I'm telling them that there is a gorilla loose. Okay? And I said, don't you understand? Did you guys have a circus near here? I'm telling you, man, one of the gorillas is out here. Whew, that guy's big. And, of course, they said, right, stay right where you are. Don't get too excited, and we'll send some nice people to help you. Well, I got my little tush back to the ship in no time flat. And I start telling, get me out. So I tried to tell the folks aboard ship, and of course everybody thinks I'm kidding, right? And so I did like any other.
You were probably a big kidder anyway, weren't you, Robert? You were always.
Who, me? Oh, no, not me. No. Oh, no. I've always been dead serious, yeah. And so finally I learned to just shut the hell up. But I know what I had seen. So I go back, I get discharged, I go through college, I get my degree, yada, 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 on this stuff. I end up in Washington, D.C. At age 20, by the time I was 27, I had the maintenance and certification responsibility for the entire computer complex in Washington, D.C. for the FAA. I mean, I did fairly well, good education. But I kept thinking about this, and I finally read an account. I can't remember, it was in True Magazine. It's a magazine no longer around. but they had mentioned the Bigfoot up in Northern California. And when I saw the drawings, I said, oh, Lord love a duck, that's what I've seen.
That's what you saw.
Yes.
And how many years later was this? How many years later was this from the time you actually saw one to you?
Oh,
10,
God.
15 years maybe?
See, 1956, about that, 56 or 57, something like that. And this would have been 1962 or 63, something like that.
So that many years passed before you actually saw any kind of article.
Confirmation.
Yeah.
Confirmation.
I kept looking for an escaped gorilla. Nobody, But anyway, but I knew at the same time. By this time, I had researched a bit about gorillas, and I looked at that and I said, that's not what I saw, because of the slope of the forehead and things like this. And I have to tell you, oh God, I read everything. I study constantly everything, comparative anatomy, you name it. If I don't know anything about it, I grab a book and I check it out. It's just my nature.
Wow.
Yeah. It's how anyone can be bored in this world is beyond me, because there's so much to know and so much to learn. And I still can't, 73, I still can't figure out what the hell I'm going to do when I grow up. I got to do something. I don't,
Well, I'm laughing because I am just the same way. And you don't really want to grow up. I don't.
No, I don't. Well, I don't have time to grow old,
I don't either. No.
And the only thing I am that I can tell is socially retarded. There's nothing I can do about it. But
then you're in good company.
Yay! So anyway, what I did was sneaky. I knew after I mastered my degree, I mastered my position. As soon as I've learned everything there is to know, it's time to move on. And the federal government does not encourage people to think outside of the box. They want robots. So what I did is I created a computer program. And I decided, okay, these people do exist. I already decided they were people because of the comparative anatomy. There's no gorilla has an opposing thumb. No gorilla has the helix, the big toe. No gorilla has the maximus glutamus, our buttocks that are as big as ours. They don't habitually walk erect, and they don't have an articulated speech program. So I'm feeding all this stuff into the computer, right? And what I did is I went in and I got all the legends and stories that I could find. And I fed them in the computer, and then I did a comparative chart on the areas that remain most wild, that had not materially changed since the time of Native Americans. And I came up with a whole bunch of them. So I chose an area on the south area of the south slopes of Mount Adams in the state of Washington. There's a diamond-shaped area. It goes from Mount Rainier in the north to Mount Hood in the south, Mount St. Helens on the west, and Mount Adams on the east. And I said, this area is possible. So I put together, I was going to go by myself, and two of my buddies, and by this time I'd quit the FAA, I guarantee you that. And, I'm one of the list. Get out of my way, sucker. And anyway, I go down there, and I put together this trip, and I'm going to go out by myself. Well, two guys heard about what I was doing. They decided to go with me. Okay, fine. Well, we went out, and I'm not joking here. This is dead serious. The first night we had arrived, which was, I can't remember the exact spot. But anyway, I'd have to get a map. It's been a long time. The first day we were driving up, and I drove my truck and our camper to the end of this, where the snow was so high on either side, I had to get up on top of the camper to be able to get above the snow. It was that deep.
Wow.
Well, but guess what? We found hominid barefoot tracks in the snow There was a large one trailed to the side by a smaller one, heading towards Sleeping Woman Mountain on our very first day there. And that's what good homework and research can do for you.
Author and adventurer Robert W. Morgan currently resides in Whitefish, Montana, and continues on his journey to learn and experience life at 79 years of age. To hear this episode in full, check Nite Callers archives for the episode March 15, 2009, Robert Morgan. Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio Rewind will continue in a moment, but first, back to our host.
Lord love a duck.
Lord love a duck.
That man is a hoot.
He is. He had us in stitches. That was like in the middle of the episode, or I guess closer to the first. But he had us in stitches before we ever even went on the air. It was awful. I just could not quit laughing. He was so great, and for an old guy, gosh, I tell you what, he was something. He really was. He was a great guest, and I was going to ask Brad, do you know where he was talking about on those locations?
I know of the locations, but like you said, he couldn't find a map. I couldn't begin to tell you.
Yeah.
I mean, him being up there in that much snow was quite an adventure in the first place.
Well, he goes on later in the episode talking about how, and I didn't include that, how he got frostbite in both of his feet and in his face. So they had quite an adventure. They sure did. Well, are you guys ready for part 3?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. This part Lauren's going to find interesting because this is where Lauren makes her entrance.
Oh.
Here we go.
This is going to be so cute.
Oh, my God. I'm going to talk to a 5-year-old.
Like a cute little girl.
Oh, stop.
And away we go.
I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it.
Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio rewinds.
Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio rewinds to May 24th, 2009.
Blog Talk Radio.
It's that time again, folks. Nite Callers with Lori, Brian, Lauren, and Luke. Kick back and relax. The show will begin shortly. 1, 2, 3.
On May 24, 2009, Nite Callers Radio would evolve again by introducing 2 new hosts, in addition to the current Laurie Phillips and Brian Wallen. The 2 new hosts were Lauren McGrory, now Smith, and Luke Gross. A new intro had to be made quickly. A sportier tune with Andrew Stickney introduction, bringing on the whole crew of Nite Callers Radio. Nite Callers Radio was about to take a firm direction in the education of people about Bigfoot and visit other areas of the unexplained. Luke Gross, with his natural radio voice and knack for art and show promotion, the show had nowhere to go but up, and up Nite Callers went, to become the #1 Bigfoot radio show by May 2010. Nite Callers Rocks became a much-used saying among the crew and listeners. New segments were brought in. Brian Wallen told old stories about the stone giants, and Lauren began her segment of Footers in the Field. Nite Callers began to do live in the field shows and round tables. It was an exciting time for everyone as we continued to gain an audience. Nite Callers aired a show on June 7, 2009, where they interviewed Henry Franzoni. In that show, some extraordinary claims were made by our guest. It caused grave concern for some of our crew. Nite Callers promptly added a disclaimer to their show profile, signifying that the views of the guest are not necessarily the views of the show. That statement stands today. Striking out with a new intro, and the talents of Luke Gross were just beginning to show themselves in this new intro that premiered on the Tom Powell Show September 13, 2009. Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio rewinds to September 13, 2009.
Blog Talk Radio.
Does a mysterious species of unknown primate roam the forested regions of North America? If so, what are they? Man, myth, or monster? They are known by many names: Sasquatch, Bigfoot, Stone Giants. These names conjure up many thoughts of huge hair-covered beasts lurking in the shadows. Are they misplaced relics from the past, or an unclassified species of primate? Join us as we search for the truth on Nite Callers Radio. And now, Nite Callers' very own Lauren McGrory with Footers in the Field.
And now for some news you can use. Hi, I'm Lauren McGrory, bringing you this week's edition of Footers in the Field. This week's article is called Lost World Found in Papua New Guinea. It's an article from earlier this week. A BBC expedition exploring inside the crater of an extinct volcano in Papua New Guinea has discovered a lost world of dozens of weird new species and rare animals, including new frogs, a giant rat, many new insects and spiders, giant caterpillars, and new bat species. The Mount Bosavi crater is 2.5 miles wide and over 3,300 feet high, and is located in the remote and mountainous southern highlands of Papua New Guinea. The mountain and its pristine extinct crater are so inaccessible that even the few people in the Kasua tribe who live nearby in the villages rarely enter the area. One of the village elders told Greenwood, "If you fall in while climbing in, no one will ever find your body." The expedition from January 30th to March 4th, 2009 include 2 directors, 2 cameramen, 2 sound recorders, support staff, a medical expert tree climbers and cavers, trackers from the Kasua tribe, and several scientists led by Professor George McGavin, an Oxford University research lecturer and assistant curator of entomology in the Oxford University Museum of Natural History. It's a mouthful. The number of new species found cannot be confirmed until the biologists have finished evaluating the finds, but they believe there may be up to 40 previously undescribed species. This includes 20 new species of insects and spiders, 16 species of frog, a new bat, and at least 3 fish species. Many of the new species discovered are believed to exist only in the Mount Bosavi crater. Some of the weird animals they discovered included a fish that uses its swim bladder to make grunting sounds, which really isn't that new, but it could be a special fish, a frog with fangs, which is pretty weird, a camouflage gecko, fantastic spiders, I don't think spiders are all that fantastic, we could do without those, and a rat that's almost 3 feet long, no comment, and a rare Doria's tree kangaroo. The animals had no fear of the expedition team, suggesting they had not encountered people before because the huge crater's inaccessibility had effectively excluded them. One of the expedition scientists, Dr. Christopher Helgen from the Smithsonian National Museum of Natural History, said the giant rat they found was one of the largest in the world. It was first spotted at an elevation of over 3,300 feet by an infrared camera trap set up in the forest by cameramen Gordon Buchanan, and this was followed by finding a live specimen. The captured rat measured 32 inches from the tip of the tail to the nose and weighed about 3.3 pounds. The scientists have tentatively named the animal the Bosavi woolly rat and think it belongs to the genus Malamus, which includes several other giant rats. The television series on this amazing crater and its lost world of strange animals is called The Lost Land of the Volcano, and it premieres on Britain's BBC One on September 8th, 2009. Alright, this article is pretty amazing because they are still finding new species out there. Yes, this was found in a remote region of Papua New Guinea, but they're still accepting new species out there in the scientific community. That gives us all hope. And if anyone else out there finds a cool story like this, or hear an interesting story about someone's experience or your own with Bigfoot, you can send it in to Nite Callers and we will share it with everyone. You will get credit for the story. Anything interesting you may hear on the news or an internet article like this one. To get your report on the air, please email the report and your name to us at nitecallers@live.com. And for more info, check out www.webjam.com/nitecallersradio. That's NITE_callers_radio. We will be taking your emails and messages before 5 p.m. on Sunday evening, and we will try to get it on the air that night. I hope to hear from y'all. Sorry, my voice is going. This concludes your weekly dose of Footers in the Field. Have a great night.
That was Lauren's first Footers in the Field segment, and she still does a fantastic job. Please stay tuned as we continue Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio Rewind in a moment. Now back to our host.
Oh my God!
I
sound like
I'm
in love.
It's the cutest thing. Oh, she sounded so cute.
Oh my God! How old was I? Like 13? I mean, no. I know I was like 21 or 22, but I just, God, I seriously sound like I was wearing braces and listening to Instinct. It was.
You're reading that thing at 100 miles an hour.
No.
Somebody said it sounded like you were fixing to do your algebra.
Yeah, when you got done. Yeah.
Well, I would pre-record my footers, and then Luke would take it and he would speed it up because it was so long. So it sounded like I was like downing freaking Surge or something back in the day. So yeah, and oh my gosh, here's now some freaking news. And that intro, oh Lord. Okay, on to the next.
Okay, I think all of you are gonna love this next one. Here we go. Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio Rewind again.
Continuing with Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio Rewind, we bring you a very special surprise. On June 14, 2009, Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio interviewed our good friend Billy Wild Bill Simmons. Being former law enforcement hunter and rancher, Billy has a solid background, making him a completely credible witness. Bill has many great stories to share, but regrettably, we only have time for one tonight. Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio rewinds to June 14th, 2009.
Storm clouds are building above the timberline. The lightning's flashing across the mountainside. Thunder's rolling down the canyons of his mind. Somewhere beyond the Great Divide. The bugle of the bull elk echoes through the pines. The north wind moans her lonesome lullaby. He hungers for the freedom of an eagle as she glides somewhere beyond the great divide. He's heard the call of the wild.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Nite Callers. Join the Nite Callers crew as we answer the call of the wild, Billy Simmons.
He's heard the call of the wild.
Something about some tree branches or some saplings in front of a stand or something like that?
Okay. Yeah, that was with the... This is kind of my take on the whole thing. In the 4 years that I was hunting there, and I know this sounds odd, okay, but we kind of had a working agreement. And if you would picture the land in a square and divide it into quarters, and as long as I hunted in one quarter of this property, I did not have any problems. But if I crossed the creek and got on the back side, then, you know, we would have all kinds of tree breaking, limbs being snapped and problems. It was kind of funny. I had my corner of the place and they had theirs. But on the fourth year, none of my stands, anything had ever been messed with. There was another one that came in. This is the big one that I saw get chased out and break cover when I had some people trespass on me. Well, and I'll go into that in just a minute. This one came in. This one was always messing with me. He came up behind me when I was hunting on the creek one time. Close, I couldn't see him, but close enough I could hear him breathing. Okay, and
I love that.
Well, because I had my back against a cedar tree. And he was to my back and to the right, and I'm setting forward with my rifle across my knees. And I reached down and pulled my pistol out and just put my knee on the arm of that chair with that pistol pointing up in the air and just looked over there. So we kind of had us an agreement, what was going to happen. And that was kind of the end of that. Well, none of the other creatures, I guess, or the one that I had seen that was out there ever messed with my stands, nothing other than the feeders. This one knew what a deer stand was. And ever since the time he had shown up, I had problems. I came in to get my stands when I lost the lease on the place, and there were two trees, probably 2.5 inches around in diameter, that had both been ripped out of the ground, dirt still hanging on the roots, and they were laid on my ladder stand in an X. And it had apparently urinated there on the ground, in front of my ladder, because there was such an ammonia smell there that it was just unbearable.
I absolutely have to say he was leaving you a message.
Yes, ma'am, he was.
Without a doubt. He was making sure you got that message.
Oh, yes. But the funny thing was, none of the other creatures, or like I said, creature that was there ever, I didn't crowd them and they didn't crowd me. And my stands were never messed with. This one absolutely, for sure, knew what a deer stand was. And yeah, he was putting the message across to me. So
now you had something else happen. There's been a lot of stuff that happened there on that hunting lease or your hunting land, and that now I know that I believe it was probably you were hunting that open field there.
Yeah.
And there's the cedar tree line, and you had something happen there that I know you told me. I think the listeners would just love to hear this story about the trespassing guys.
Yes, this was really interesting to me in a lot of ways. And what had happened was I found the area, and this was actually, I was sitting at the same tree with the creek behind me where he had come up, before on me. But I had figured out that the deer, where they were crossing, and so that's where I'm sitting. Well, apparently the creature figured out the same thing, because he was actually hunting on the other side of the fence from me. And what had happened was there were some hunters that had came in on another road, and I heard them when they came in and parked and got out of their trucks. And they walked in, on my boundary line on the far corner. Well, what I didn't know is they had crossed over and come onto my property. And I was sitting there, and I heard tree limbs breaking, and I heard the only way I can describe it is an old tree or an extremely heavy log being thrown in there. It was more racket than I've ever heard in the woods at one time.
Mm-hmm.
So I turned and was immediately fixated on this area. All of a sudden, this creature broke cover and ran out and straight down the fence line, and was running through the cedar trees. He was not, just batting the limbs out of his way. And I'm sitting there taking this all in.
Yeah.
And about 2 or 3 minutes later, here come two hunters stepping across my fence and onto my property. And oh yes. And so, and what I found, really funny was the fact that this creature was large, okay? Later on, when I had gone down there to retrieve my stands, we found a track in an ant mound. Mm-hmm. And we didn't cast it because I was, getting my stuff out, but it measured 21 inches, and I have never seen one that large or even heard of one that large in Texas. I haven't.
Right.
18's the norm. But this animal, like I said, it to me it looked like if you stood a Bramer bull up on his back legs, that's what he looked like.
Wow.
I've never seen anything this big. And but the fact that he ran from, as large as he was from these two hunters, it was just it was something.
It looked almost physically impossible.
Yeah, it did to me. It really did. I mean, this. I don't even know what I'd want to estimate. Between 8 and 9 foot, I'm guessing, on this one. But I was 50 yards off. But he was that large.
Yeah,
he was huge.
No,
and this creature was black. Like I said, the first one was strawberry cinnamon colored. This one was solid black.
Wow.
Yeah, that's big. Now I know that we'd been out there on that property before and done some research, and we found a track. Matter of fact,
yes,
we found 2 tracks that day, which was, and one of them was in an anthill, just like you were describing the large one that you found, and we've got photographs of that casting process. If you go to the WebJam site at the photos, you'll see we have there are some photographs of that there also. But now, do you think what do you think that Bigfoot was doing there in the city?
The black one.
The black one. What do you think he was doing?
He was hunting as well. Obviously we both came to the same conclusion. The deer are going to be right here, crossing in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, I don't know if he saw me come in, if he knew I was there. I don't think he really cared if I was.
Billy Simmons is now a Nite Callers crew member, and though a few words, Bill is a great comedian when he gets the floor. Bill still resides in North Texas in the same area where his story took place and continues to consider Bigfoot as troublemakers. To hear this episode in its entirety, go to Nite Callers Radio archives and look for Billy Simmons, June 14th, 2009. Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio Rewind will continue in a few moments. And now, back to our host.
Billy
Simmons says he's now part of the crew. You're moving on up, Billy.
Moving on up? Yeah.
Still has issues, but that's okay.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, I searched that interview for the part where you were sitting at the cedar tree doing your hunting, and can you tell that part when that one came up behind you and what you did when he came up behind you?
Well, I was pretty well, if he wanted me, he had me, because I had cut some branches down, trimmed them back, and was slid up in there, hunting out of a chair. And I could hear him up behind me. I could hear him breathing. And, he was, not up into the tree with me, but he was looking in. And honestly, was kind of screwed. I was down there by myself. There wasn't anybody going to, show up to help me. And my rifle was across my knees. And that day I had the single shot with the scope on it. And so it wasn't going to work out well. So I reached around, and I carry a 44 mag in a cross-draw holster, and I just reached down and grabbed it in my hand, and I had my elbow on the chair, on the arm of the chair, and I just pulled it out, left the elbow on the arm of the chair, thumb-cocked that pistol in the air, and just looked over my shoulder in the direction I heard him breathing, and it was kind of one of those deals, well, if you want to get me, you're going to get me, but I'm going to make it hurt. That's, this is, we had a Mexican standoff, for lack of a better term. And I just sat there and just kept looking that way. I couldn't see anything, but here in a few minutes, the breathing, I couldn't hear it, and you could hear some movement that was going off. And that was actually the last time, that one, and then I had the one other time where I saw him, and I'm equating this to being the same one that I talked about where he took off running. Those were the last two times that I actually hunted in that section. This was a rogue male that had come in there. He was not, the normal ones I've been used to dealing with in there in a few years that left me alone. This is the only one I've ever said that I actually thought would try to hurt me. Because he did not break stuff. He, wouldn't throw things, all the stuff that they'll do to try to get you to leave an area. He didn't do it. This one would try to physically crawl under my hat, get as close to me as he could, as quietly as he could. And he gave me the heebie-jeebies, because when this one came in, that's when I started having problems. The trees that were uprooted, dirt ball, root ball and all, and laid in an X, on my 18-foot ladder stand for me, telling me, and in the 4 or 5 years that I'd hunted that, my stands were not messed with. I left them in from year to year in the same place. This guy showed up. He knew exactly what a deer stand was, and like I said, at some point I'm going to assume somebody taking a pot shot at him from one. That's the only thing I can think of. But when he showed up, he also pitched a smaller male that was in the group out. He pitched him out because this area that I was hunting, the little triangle area, there was nothing there to keep a squatch in that little piece of ground. Okay, there was no food, no water, no shelter. And this little male, we had 3 or 4 times in a row we went in there, and this guy was around in that area. And that started about the time this big boy showed up on the scene. So I'm just assuming he came in and pitched him out of the group.
Wow. You still live in the same area?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not maybe 30 minutes from where this all took place. But like I said, that is I've had a few run-ins and all kinds of kooky stuff go on in the woods with them before, but this guy's the only one that I ever felt threatened by.
Wow.
It's live remote time.
Okay. I think Raz is trying to say, Mr. Winter is trying to say that it's time to go to intermission, everyone. So we will be back on the other side.
Don't go away, as Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio will continue to rewind with clips from Autumn Williams, the late Philip Spencer, and more. You are listening to Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio. And now, back to Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio Rewind.
Well,
okay, on to the next.
Yes, on to the next. Are you ready to go to the next already? Okay, this is a really great segment, one of my favorites, I think. And it's a little bit longer, so maybe I'll be able to flip it all out. So here we go for part 5.
Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio continues to rewind to the past. On November 15, 2009, we were honored to have a very coveted guest on our show. We were fortunate to have the great opportunity to interview Autumn Williams, who at that time was not granting interviews to anyone. We were delighted at the special boon our show is about to receive. Autumn Williams started out as a childhood witness and began conducting field research at age 16. 17 years later, she's been all over the U.S. and studies consistently in her own area. Her goal is to develop a trust and rapport with these creatures and study them in their natural habitat. Autumn has discovered that these creatures are being underestimated by the research community, saying, "No wonder the last 50 years of research have gotten us nowhere." After a 9-month stint on Mysterious Encounters and a Sci-Fi Channel show, Autumn found it far more rewarding to do her own documentary, which she produced in 2005. Nite Callers Radio rewinds to November 15th, 2009.
You try and blend in and you're sneaking around. You've actually become a predator then. You're the predator. You're hunting. And they're fully aware that you're a hunter because they see this all the time. And they know what hunters can do. And I'm a hunter myself, but they know what's going on. They're not stupid by no means.
Well, and it's not that hunters don't see them. Hunters see them all the time. I mean, because you're basically after the same prey. You're both after deer.
Exactly.
So that makes total sense. But we're not talking about hunters seeing them. We're talking about long-term witnesses interacting with them, which is a big, big difference.
I know one. I know one personally that is a long-term witness, which has been having interaction for 24 years. Not really interaction. Let me say it this way: they can be these Sasquatch can be persistent, but this person I know has rejected interacting with them. But they are still there, and they'll knock on windows, they'll hit the side of the house, and trying to get this person's attention. So they're persistent in if they're wanting to interact, they will let you know. This is what I found out from this person.
You know, the nature of these creatures is... I'm sorry, Lori, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say we have a couple of questions from the chat, but go ahead with the nature and then we'll get to the questions, okay?
This is something that's been on my mind a lot lately. After doing this for 20 years and really paying attention to the people who, you know, would know some of the details about the nature of these creatures and reading between the lines in the reports and not necessarily, you got to understand, not wanting anything to be so, because I've said it before and I'll say it again, I don't believe anything about Sasquatch. I'm not a believer.
Right.
I'm a studier. I'm an analyst. I analyze things. And whatever Bigfoot is whatever Bigfoot is. And no matter what I or you or Joe Blow wants Bigfoot to be, Bigfoot is whatever it is. And it's not a thing about dogma. It's not a thing about belief. So setting all of that aside, I've looked at everything carefully without any preconceived notions and without any need or desire or agenda for Bigfoot to be anything specific, but just what is it? And I think I've really come pretty close to understanding the nature of the beast, as it were.
Oh, that is wonderful.
the thing is that I really think that in a vast majority of cases, and this is going to sound real weird, but I think that Bigfoot researchers are looking for a creature that doesn't exist. It's not that.
Why do you say that?
It's not that Bigfoot doesn't exist, but I think
the creature they think it is doesn't exist.
It isn't, right? And I think that their research is being tailored to vastly underestimate the persona, the characteristics of these things.
Wow. That's pretty profound, but I believe you're right.
Yeah.
I believe you're right.
Lori, I believe you said it well, that the research community has basically come to an impasse.
Exactly. They've just run into a stone wall because they don't want to go past a certain point. They're not comfortable. They don't want to believe that something out there could be more intelligent than they are. And it is a pride issue.
But intelligence is really relative, and I want to share with you kind of how I've come to terms with how these things are, who they are.
Okay.
If I can, and I'll try.
You sure can. All right.
My box of words, my thesaurus, and my dictionary seem to be misplaced. So
you are doing awesome. Don't worry about it. Okay, we'll try.
Okay.
But it's like it must be contagious tonight because I've been having the same problem. But go ahead.
Okay. I think in order to understand them, we need to understand us first. And I think in understanding them, we will understand ourselves better. And this gets kind of into the philosophical realm. But since I have a 3-year-old, 2-year-old, and I can't really get out in the field much right now, I do a lot of thinking about Bigfoot. So you're going to have to bear the brunt of this tonight. Sorry.
That's awesome, though. We're glad to hear it, though. Go ahead. We're all ears.
Now, first of all, okay, look at people. We spend our entire lives seeking identity. We are constantly bombarded by advertisements that tell us that we're not tall enough, we're not tan enough, we're not rich enough, our teeth aren't white enough, we're not skinny enough. And then they're telling us what we should be. We should be a banker, we should be an accountant, we should be this, we should be that, we should be a sports star, we should be a celebrity, we should be more like this person. We're constantly being bombarded by these messages that whatever we are isn't good enough. Whatever we are isn't enough. We aren't who we are what we do. And we're always looking for this identity. I mean, how many people who are listening to this right now have a bumper sticker on the back of their car that tells the world who they are and what they think? And why do you need to have a bumper sticker to do that? Because you're trying to identify yourself. That's part of your identity, right? Okay, so now take a creature that lives out in the woods who doesn't have any problem with this massive identity crisis that we exist in. They are who they are, period. They have their individual selves. No one's questioning that. What it creates is a presence that is so powerful, an individuality, and just a presence that is so incredibly powerful. Have you ever met somebody who knows themselves very well and they're very comfortable in their own skin? Their presence
almost
is
a
powerful.
confidence. Are you speaking of confidence? Is that what you're speaking of?
Just their presence. I mean, just the fact that they know who they are. So you've got these creatures out there who are not in the midst of an identity crisis like we are. They're not afraid. We're afraid of everything. Humans are the puniest, weakest, most scared things in this world. We're terrified of everything.
That's true, because there's not anybody out there that's not afraid of something. You know,
but it's not
everyone has a
phobias. Right, but not just phobias. We're afraid that people are going to think that we're not tall enough, skinny enough, rich enough, that our teeth aren't white enough, that we're not smart enough. I mean, we're constantly absorbed in this insecurity. as a race, as a species. And I'm not going to even try to guess why. But I really imagine that these things don't have that problem.
Mm-mm. No, I
Neither.
wouldn't think so. Well, they may have a fear of survival. I would have to say that they probably do fear humans, or the hairless ones, for very good reason. And I think that possibly the loss of habitat is a concern to them also. I don't know. Now, I've never sat down and talked with one, unfortunately.
Right.
I wouldn't be on this show. I'd be a guest on this show if I'd ever had that experience, maybe. I need to get to these questions because we're and we'll get right back to that. Okay, Autumn?
Okay.
No problem. Lauren, go ahead. What's the first question?
All right. Well, this is back a few topics ago, but Wings Away wants to know, have these folks ever experienced unusual gifts like fish or stone stacks?
Absolutely. One of the things that I noticed when I very first started researching long-term witnesses was I was just blown away by the similarities to what happened at our place. And just there seems to be almost a preoccupation with patterns, or almost an OCD kind of a thing with these guys. They will leave they'll leave stacks of stone. They ripped up the freezer paper that Mom left out the freezer burnt bunny meat in. They tore it up in teeny little pieces and left it in a pile. When they leave things, they seem to leave them in a stack. They seem to leave sticks in different, very obvious patterned formations.
Mm-hmm. So that you know it's not an accident of nature, that it is not just an animal.
It's deliberate. Mm-hmm. Sure.
Yeah. I agree 100%.
And I mean,
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Luke
so yeah, I mean that
100%.
deliberation. I'm sorry, we keep stepping on each other talking here. I think there's a delay.
Okay. Okay. Lauren, the next question, please.
All right. West Kentucky Bigfoot wants to know, has Autumn ever been able to come up with similarities between people who have had multiple experiences?
I'd be interested in getting more detail about the question. Similarities yes, definitely. To just use a real broad brushstroke here, the long-term witnesses in a lot of cases are women with children who are living in a rural area at the edge of a forest or in the middle of a forest. The dad's usually away at work. They usually have livestock, and they're just out there being people. If they're being observed by these creatures, I have a feeling that the creatures are not seeing anything threatening or intimidating going on there. And because they are caring for the animals and they're showing that kind of compassion and that sort of thing, I think that probably adds a few points too. The other thing that I noticed about a lot of long-term witnesses is that they didn't know anything about this subject before it started. They're generally rural people, and so they're not the kind of people who, if you put them in a suit and you plop them in the middle of a restaurant in Fifth Avenue, and I want you to remember that I'm saying exactly this because we're going to get back to this in a minute, that they would have all of the necessarily, and now this isn't in all cases, but they don't have the same level of sophistication, quote unquote, that city folk do, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Which in a lot of researchers' eyes makes them less than perfect witnesses. In my eyes, it makes them absolutely expected witnesses.
Yes. Well, they're real. They're genuine.
Yeah. They're country folk. They live by a completely different set of rules, and I'm going to come back to that when we're talking about the nature of Bigfoot. But I hope that answers the question.
All right. We got another question, Lauren?
Yes. This person kind of added on to her question over a few topics. Donna C. says, scientifically, do you feel that Sasquatch have some of the same characteristics as humans as far as pre-civilized human sociology and as far as their instincts and intelligence? I can repeat that.
No, I got it, and that's exactly where I was going. Is it okay if I go there?
Yes, please.
Okay. You can't take a Sasquatch, shave him, put him in a suit, and put him in the middle of a restaurant in downtown New York and expect that he is going to blend in. It's not going to happen. When people, the problem that researchers have with long-term witnesses is that because long-term witnesses will talk about human characteristics. When they're talking about human characteristics, the researchers who are listening to that are putting their own spin on that, and they're perceiving, they're misperceiving what the habituators are saying. It's not, we look at, how to explain this? God, sorry.
You are doing a wonderful job. Keep going.
We think about humans. When we think about humans, we think about, okay, you don't spit on the sidewalk in front of someone because we consider that to be rude. You don't fart, you don't belch in public, you don't pick your nose, you don't scratch your butt, right?
Right.
Because those things aren't right. Those things are not civilized. Here's a newsflash. These things aren't civilized. But but what is it that truly makes us human? I mean, that's not human. That's cultural. Because in other countries, you know, in other countries, it's perfectly acceptable to belch after dinner because it's a compliment. So those things are cultural, and we are so sociocentric that when we're listening to habituators, we're automatically. I'm looking at Kite Squatch. She's never met my coworkers. That's awesome. Sorry. That just cracked me up. Let me get back to this. Sorry. We are so sociocentric that we're looking at the things that habituators are telling us through United States of America colored glasses, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So when a habituator is telling you they have human characteristics, what they're talking about is the fact that they're capable of being compassionate, they're capable of communicating, they're capable of caring, they definitely have a sense of humor. But on the flip side, they're perfectly capable of being incredibly frickin' savage if you do something that they don't like, which is normally trying to take control away from them. But you can't shave one, and even if you could find a suit that big, you can't take them to New York and expect them to blend in with us because they don't give a crap about the things that we give a crap about.
That's true.
We're so obsessed with artifice and pretense. We're so pretentious.
Yes.
If that makes sense?
Yes.
They're not pretentious.
It seems that they're happy just being. Just being.
Right.
But
here's the thing. Think about those witnesses I was talking about. How pretentious are the rural people who are living out there? They're not.
No. They're not. They don't really care. They don't really care.
I'm getting all excited.
They don't care what they look like. They don't care what people think of them. They are what they are. Yeah.
They're not doing, they're being.
Yes.
They're exactly right. Go ahead, Ellen. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, if that makes sense to you, I mean,
it really does. So, what would you suggest to a person going out there? What would you suggest to a person going out there that's trying to begin with interaction? What would you suggest? They just completely work on themselves first before they go out there, or I don't know. It's hard to undo. It's hard to undo the human experience, what we are.
Yes.
And yet there are people that are going out there that are having experiences. I call them Bigfoot magnets, because they're people that when it seems like almost invariably everywhere they go, one will show up. You may not see it, but you can smell it, you'll hear it. You know it's there, it's following you, and you see eye shine in the tree line in the evening time, and movement and this and that, and it just seems to be that no matter where they go, especially if they go in an area that is prime habitat, they almost always have some kind of experience. And yet they're just regular people. They're not actually country folk. They're just regular people. And of course, they're not running out there in high heels in a business suit. But there's something about their spirit. I really think it's something that is inside their whole body language, maybe. I don't know what it is.
It's something that you project. I mean, you project what you are. You project who you are, and you know those people who are going out and they're having experiences. I mean, granted, and this is where I'm going to put my foot down. In some cases, a lot of that may be interpretation.
Right.
Some of it may be interpretation,
or imagination even.
Exactly, imagination, interpretation, or just wishful thinking, or I call it Bigfoot-itis. Every crack, every branch crack, everything is, oh, well, that was a Bigfoot. That was a Sasquatch, and that's the thing. Especially a lot of newbies, in the field experience. But I definitely think that there are people who go out and they do have a lot more encounters than other people. And what that says, I think that says a lot about the person, but I think it also, if you look at it, it also says a lot about the Sasquatch phenomenon. I don't think necessarily that the people who go out who aren't having experiences don't have a Bigfoot in the woods right next to them. It just chooses not to say anything. Now, how creepy is that to think about?
Yeah.
Not at all. And how would you suggest that if somebody's out there, somebody that's researching and using scientific methodology, and they've come to an impasse, what would you suggest? How would you suggest them stepping over that line and continuing research, but in a different way? What would you suggest for these people to do?
It's really hard for people who are doing that to let go of the logic and the reason. The logic and reason and emotion are diametrically opposed and often mutually exclusive. So it's a big leap. And it's not that I don't do things scientifically, but I never forget the nature of the thing that I'm dealing with. And that's the problem. People get so wrapped up in science, and it becomes so sterile and so regimented. Like,
science has to be regimented. That's what they ask you to do when you're being scientific.
It does, but here's the thing: you don't have to give up the whole idea of the empirical process, which is what you look at all of the evidence. Okay, well, all right. There you go. Everybody's screwed right there. 90% of researchers are screwed because they won't even look at all the evidence. They look at whatever evidence they feel comfortable with, which says what?
Exactly.
What they're doing has nothing to do with science because they already have come to their conclusion prior to testing any hypothesis because they're developing their hypothesis based upon a bias. That's not
it's
science.
Just like a biased report. Reports are filtered that they don't want to connect.
That's called religion. It is. It's religion, and I don't care. I don't care if it's a religion under the guise of science. If you are practicing a dogma and a belief system, and you're so bent on proving that your belief is true that you're not willing to look at something that flies in the face of your belief, you belong to the Church of Bigfoot. And you don't get to call yourself a scientist.
No.
Well said.
This is the stuff that's blown my mind about this research field for so many years, and why, I have a lot of researcher friends, and I respect them, and I love them. Mm-hmm. I mean, I know people all over the country, and I love all of them. But they're not getting this.
Well, and it's very trying to try to explain it to them. But I think you've done an excellent job tonight.
After publishing her book, Enoch, and the controversy that followed, Autumn Williams left the Bigfoot community as a whole and has not returned. She is focusing on raising her daughter and her music. She may still be reached at OregonBigfoot.com, and she continues to learn about the Sasquatch and those who live amongst them. Her book, Enoch, can be purchased from OregonBigfoot.com. To hear this episode in its entirety, please visit the Nite Callers Radio archives and search for November 15th, 2009, Autumn Williams. This show comes highly recommended and well worth the search. Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio Rewind will continue in a moment. Now back to our hosts.
Hey, I love Autumn Williams.
I know.
Oh, my goodness.
She is an amazing person, but just for her time, for the time period that she was, on, and she was just so innovative compared to the other researchers. They were so closed-minded, so scared to step outside their comfort zone to research, and she was just all about it. She was really amazing. Is really amazing. She's not deceased. She's still with us.
And she's hot.
I really.
You said it, didn't you, Greg?
I had to say it for Billy's sake.
You hate it. Somebody had to say it.
She is a beautiful woman. She sure is. Inside and out.
Mm-hmm.
What I really liked about it was, Luke always took a real scientific approach, and she just kind of shot him down. It was like he didn't even know what to say to her. He really didn't, because he's always been very analytical in his research, and she is more philosophical. And so it was really interesting to watch the two of them, and I was privately smiling on the side during the entire show.
She really is amazing. That show is definitely worth going back and listening to. Mm-hmm. And just, take notes. That was in 2009, but still the stuff she said, will stay with me, every single time I go out,
Yep. Well, shall we continue?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Okay, let's go with part 6.
Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio continues to rewind. By mid-2010, Nite Callers had underwent more changes. Brian Wallen had left the show, and we were down a crew member. JB was a regular caller to our show. His unique voice and intelligent questions prompted our team to approach him to co-host with us. JB was spiritual and offset Luke's scientific approach, making a perfect addition to the team. He agreed readily, so Nite Callers had the complete crew for the duration of 2010 until May of 2011. After many different intro songs, we finally found the perfect music, and Luke wrote the introduction, recorded and produced the new Nite Callers Radio intro. The new introduction will head this next special episode. On August 1st, 2010, Nite Callers was excited to interview author Philip Spencer. Philip Spencer grew up in Anderson County, Kentucky, in the town of Lawrenceburg. Blessed or cursed with an insatiable curiosity for everything, he has been seeking answers to the mysteries of life, death, and the paranormal since childhood. A 30-year veteran investigator, he has amassed a huge number of case files in his research of strange events that have occurred around the world. Bigfoot, however, is one of the author's preferred areas of research, as Anderson County, Kentucky. Many sightings of the enigmatic creature known the world over. His first book, The Wild Man of Kentucky, The Mystery of Panther Rock, entails these sightings with much more, taking the reader on a journey into the heart of the dark and bloody ground, one of the most active paranormal places in the nation, and also known as Fraser Land. Philip was the team leader for the show Monster Quest on the episode called The Hillbilly Beast, and he put together the part of the show about Central Kentucky. He also was a researcher on the werewolf episode for the final season of Monster Quest. Philip is the author of the book The Wild Man of Kentucky, The Mystery of Panther Rock, which also was made a DVD. Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio rewinds to August 1st, 2010.
Appreciate it.
Blog Talk Radio.
Mysteries abound around the world. From strange lights in the night sky to ghostly apparitions passing from one realm to the next, to what lies beneath the depths of Loch Ness. From Bigfoot to Atlantis, they are all mysteries waiting to be solved. Join Lori Phillips, Lauren McGroy, Luke Gross, and JB on Nite Callers Radio as they continue their search for the truth.
Okay, you get back to Philip. A quick question before we get back to where Luke left us off here. Are you able to get in the field in your area up there around Hampton?
A little bit. I have been. It was really quite a devastating injury last year when I was working with Monster Quest, and it's been quite a change for me not being able to get out like I used to. I've gone out locally over in the Smithfield area, down south a little ways, out into some areas, looking around back in some where there's been some power line cuts. There was a report near the nuclear plant, I believe, many years ago, and I've gone over in there, but not near as much as I'd like to, but it's mainly because I hurt my foot really bad.
Get that thing well first.
Yeah.
We lived in your area, in the Tidewater area, for many years, over in Chesapeake, and we had a little action down along the Northwest River there.
Yeah, that's on the south side. We're here on the peninsula.
Yeah, you're across the. I've stirred up the water in the roads there a few times too. Okay, I don't know where Luke was going with this, but I have a question. Panther Rock is actually a cave, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Can you tell us about what you found out about Panther Rock?
Well, that may take a little bit.
Yeah.
Panther Rock.
Well, you've got a whole hour and a half to cover it.
It may take that just to talk about Panther Rock. Panther Rock is located in Anderson County. It's a very unique cave in many ways. It's on private property. It's not accessible. I was very fortunate to know the people that own the land. They're just extremely nice people, and were very understanding and courteous to let us go back there and do some filming and look around. But I have known about Panther Rock since I was very young. It's part of local legend, and there are numerous stories about odd events at Panther Rock. I myself, personally, have had 2 experiences back there that are totally beyond my being able to even begin to explain them. Others have had events in the area, but the Wild Man of Kentucky, the mystery of Panther Rock, well, as everybody most likely knows, the term Wild Man is a word that has been used in regards to Sasquatch, Bigfoot. It goes way back into history and even into the European history of what you might consider Bigfoot. I personally think it might have been feral people that they referred to as wild men of the woods, but term has been used with Sasquatch. And that was just kind of a play on words concerning the cave and Bigfoot and all these strange stories that went on around this cave. Once I kind of stepped back and looked at things, I realized that all of this happened around the cave. Now, you can hear people argue, well, you can take something like that and say, well, it also happened around this tree over here. And that's very true. But there are not direct stories of very unusual events happening at that tree where there are about this cave. Panther Rock was named because legend has it that a panther, and a matter of fact, a black panther, killed a notorious Native American chief at the top of the cave. There's a plateau of rock and then a path that goes down 100, 150 feet to the cave. And supposedly the panther killed the Native American chief at the top part of the cave. So there's just so many stories about around this area. The ex-farmer that's talked about so much in the book and the DVD, he's within 1,500 yards of the cave. And so many strange things happened on his property. That's where the track, the almost 20-inch track was found. The animals were killed, his dogs. The Fraser mud track was found. Just on and on, in this area.
That Fraser mud track is a very interesting piece. Have you come to any further conclusion on that?
Well, as a matter of fact, I'm glad you asked me that. I've really had a lot of discussions since that track. That was actually the catalyst for this book and DVD. I was told in a casual conversation with a friend, he said, I've got a picture of a track that you need to look at. He said, I've never seen anything like it. I said, well, send it to me. And it's almost a story in itself as to finding the picture, but we found it. And he sent it to me, and the minute I looked at it, I thought, well, that just doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. There's certain specifics that define a canine and a feline track. There are absolute specifics in those tracks that will tell you if a canine or a feline made that track. And those specifics are missing for either. There's a combination, yes, but the specifics are missing, as my page where I did the analysis on it shows. And I have talked to people that are experts in the feline and the canine world. And it was odd. They all said the same thing. They never said, oh, it's absolutely a canine track. That was never said to me. And it was never said, oh, it's a feline track. What they always said was, well, it must be a canine track because it can't be a feline track.
Yeah.
Or vice versa,
yeah.
But I recently spoke with someone, a very, very experienced outdoorsman.
Yeah.
And we were discussing this track, and he told me something. He said, I've got a theory on that track. And I was even told, I tell everybody this, I was even told once by a veterinary pathologist that it was her opinion that that track was made by an African lion. I've had a lot of statements about that track, but one thing we can rest assured of, that whatever threw that track was a big animal.
Yeah.
A big mountain lion, a big one will throw a 3.5-inch track, and that's a big one. I think you'll find the average is probably 3, and it was easy to see that this track was 4 or better. That's just a very, very large animal.
Yes, it
well,
is.
My friend, stated that he thinks that this was made by a hybrid animal. That he is convinced that that is a hybrid track because he has seen something similar. I can't get into a whole lot more about what he said, but I will say this. Just a few weeks after the Fraser mud track was found, just a short distance, a half mile, maybe a mile from where this track was found, a man and woman, they own a farm there. They raise cattle, do some farming, elderly couple, just good people, down-to-earth, country farm people. And they heard a crash outside. And the lady went to the back door and looked, and one of their cows had crashed through the gate. And they ran out to see what was going on, and the cow was standing there, and its eye had been ripped out, and its ears were torn off to the bone, and its back was ripped with 3 deep gashes. And I went, the man preferred not to go on camera. I tried every way in the world to get him to, but I respected that's what he didn't want to do. And they actually did have pictures, and they looked everywhere. Their son had them because the cow was saved by a vet, believe it or not. And this man told me, he said, Philip, I've been around a long time. He said, I've been hunting since I was a little boy. And this man's up in the years. And I asked him, I said, do you think a big cat did that? And he said, absolutely not. He said, a big cat didn't do that. He said, I don't know what did that, but it was not a cat. And that was his opinion. But, you know, it takes a power. This is a 700-pound cow, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a big animal to do that kind of damage.
Yes.
And within, I forget the time span, I'd have to pull up notes. I believe it was around 88 or 89 on the ex-farmer's property. He had worked all day, and he came, was home. They live in a cabin back off the road, private people, not looking for anything to happen, but it sure has to them. And he had 3 farm dogs. Now, as all of you know that spend any time out in the country, dogs that run on farmland are pretty rough and tough old dogs. They're a different kind of animal. The farms where they stay and so forth, well, that's their home. They're protective of it, etc. And he heard a fight. It was late. He was going to bed. He'd worked 18 hours or so that day and was exhausted, and he was about to go to bed. And he heard this fight. And he went to the door, and he looked out, and he had a little light. And up, he had an old light up at where his lot hit the woods, up the old rock road there to the place. And he could see a fight taking place. It was hard to be specific, but it was his 3 dogs. They were 2 dogs at 70 pounds and 1 dog's maybe at 80. 2 Dobermans and a big farm dog is what they were. Mm-hmm. But he could hear them screaming and going in, and he could see some kind of creature. He said it was the strangest thing. He said it was big, way over 100 pounds, and he said it was facing him, but it looked like its stomach dropped way down, and it was swinging. He said it would swing, and when it would swing and hit one of the dogs would scream and roll. And then the fight moved into the woods. And here's what he said to me. He said, those dogs have taken care of themselves a long time out there. And I figured they would take care of themselves then. And he went to bed. And the next morning, he found two of the dogs laying out in the yard with huge rips in their faces. And the biggest dog was never seen again. Yeah, that's what I said.
Was what he saw on all fours?
Yes. Yes, it was. That's how it was fighting, was on all fours.
Okay.
I don't know how this, I'm not saying that correlates to the mud track, and I'm not saying that correlates to the cow mutilation. But he was very descriptive. And, all this stuff is happening on his property. And that's not what this family had wanted.
No, I bet.
They didn't want this happening. There was a time when they told the children they could not go out at night anymore. They were constantly carrying guns. That's how afraid these individuals were of what was going on.
Yeah.
And we spent some time back in that farm, and it's definitely an unusual place.
With heavy hearts, Philip Spencer passed away in May 2014. His work can still be found, and his wonderful memory will not be lost with those that enjoyed his wonderful storytelling and gentle nature. Rest in peace, my friend. To hear this episode, search Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio Archives for Philip Spencer, the Kentucky Wild Man, on August 1st, 2010. Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio Rewind will return in a moment. Now back to our host.
Well, you could tell I was getting tired. My tongue was starting to get tangled up.
I don't know, during that whole segment if y'all heard the frog thing, the little ribbit throughout the whole thing. So that reminded me to go ahead, and we wanted to say a big shout out and thank you to Frog, who was our 5th co-host for quite a while there. He added so much to the show, so much humor, and he even had his own segment on Bigfoot research and camping tips, such as don't poo near your water source or near your camp. But other really great stuff. He would introduce new gear and all kinds of stuff. So you can go listen during that time frame, and you'll get to hear Frog on there and catch some of his tips.
We miss Frog.
We do miss Frog.
Wherever you are, Froggy.
Yeah, wherever you are, Froggy, we love you and we miss you. And if you should happen to listen to this show, like on your phone, privately, in a McDonald's bathroom, we want you to know that we love you and we miss you. And you were great on the show. You were absolutely great. Well, we have one more segment, and we're going to end the show right after the segment. So we want to tell you that next week we're having Dawn Neal from Kentucky. We're returning back to the North American Sasquatch Researcher Series. So Dawn Neal of Kentucky will be our next guest next Thursday. So we want you all to come and tune in. And it's been an experience, this entire show. Lots of good memories. So, everyone, let's say good night, and we'll go ahead and start the very last and final segment.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone, and thank you for listening.
Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio rewinds for a final segment in tonight's show. By May of 2011, Nite Callers Radio had been at the top for almost a year. A lot of hard work, sacrifice of time from families, and burnout plagued our crew. Lauren was planning her wedding to Rick. Luke had an important research project underway. There was talk of ending the show and returning back to normal life. After the Bigfoot History Show on May 15, 2011, JB was the first to resign from the show. Luke followed immediately afterward. There were no hard feelings and all remained friends. For the last show on May 22, 2011, Laurie Phillips and Lauren McGrory interviewed Ontario Wildlife Field Research as a duo. This show continues to be the most highly downloaded show in the history of Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio. There were plans to continue, but it never happened. Plans to take the summer off and return never happened. Nite Callers Radio had reached the top and ended without explanation to their listeners. For this, we offer our apologies, as we were heartbroken over the show's ending and did not know if we would ever find anyone as special as Luke and JB. During the 3 years Nite Callers Radio was off the air, Finding Bigfoot premiered, and a whole new multitude of Bigfoot researchers and enthusiasts flooded the Bigfoot community. Shows like Sasquatch Chronicles capitalized on the influx of interest, while other shows that had been going on for years were also running out of steam and going out. In August 2014, Laurie and Lauren made an exciting commitment to bring back Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio. After 3 years, they missed the challenge of making a show and meeting new people. They missed having a project that they could share. They wanted to have the same format as the former show, live and unedited. They went on a search for 2 male co-hosts and found a comical duel in their good friends Billy Simmons and Graz. Because the two had such a great rapport, they were an instant shoe-in to complete the new Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio cast. Because they wanted to help, they agreed to do the show even though they had no experience in the matter. Shy and unsure were our new hosts, and nervous and rusty as we were, Nite Callers presented their first show on August 10, 2014, and introduced the series of the North American Sasquatch researcher. Graz and Billy have proved to be a wonderful addition, and their loyalty and hard work have made an amazing contribution to the success of Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio. They are every bit as special as the hosts that were lost. Lauren and I are completely grateful for your dedication, your ideas and input, and your wonderful personalities that add unique flavor to all of our shows. We are back. Will we make it to the top again? Only time will tell. Thank you for listening to Nite Callers Bigfoot Radio.
Mysteries abound around the world, from strange lights in the night sky to ghostly apparitions passing from one realm to the next. From the great pyramids of Egypt to what lies beneath the depths of Loch Ness. From Bigfoot to Atlantis, they are all mysteries waiting to be solved. Join Laurie Phillips, Lauren Smith, Graz, and Billy Simmons as they search for the truth on Nite Callers Radio.